Bartenders of Reddit, what is the coolest thing you've witnessed a drunk person do at a bar? I watched a completely inebriated 90-year-old Scottish man play the greatest game of billiards I have ever seen at a local pub. He could barely stand or speak but played like a professional. That's not slurring. That's just how they talk. Some guy said to me after I'd just served him, "Watch my beer, I'm going out for a cigarette." He then threw the cigarette in the air and caught it in his mouth and walked outside like nothing had happened. Followed a guy down a flight of stairs. He could hardly walk. While going down the stairs he did a complete 360 and never missed a step. I tried it sober and almost killed myself. Ex-bartender assistant here. Worked in one of the bigger country bars in Canada. I've seen a fair bit of stupid. But the best would have to be a shorter guy, 5'2"-ish, step in when a buddy was about to get the kicked out of him by another drunk guy, over 6'0" and reasonably built. The shorter guy steps in. Blocks the angry drunk, who promptly backhands the shorter guy to the ground. Normally security would have stepped in by now. But it was a busy night and they hadn't seen the altercation. Shorter guy stands back up, dusts himself off and does what I can only describe as a jumping jackhammer punch to the drunk guy's face. Basically he jumped up and rode the guy down, feeding him what looked to be 5-6 punches. Guy was done before he hit the ground. Broken nose. The works. Unfortunately both were kicked out due to fighting. But I fought for the shorter guy to stay. A drunk regular accidentally takes another drunk regular's purse home. She calls him to bring the purse back. They were friends. Which he does while eating an ice cream cone. She rhetorically asked where her ice cream was. He proceeds to go to the gas station across the street and comes back with a whole grocery bag full of ice cream cones and not only gives one to her, but to every customer at the bar and multiple to us bartenders. There was something so adorable about a room full of adults elated to have one giant, spontaneous ice cream party. I don't know if cool is the best description, but I cut a very drunk guy off one night but allowed him to sit at the bar to sober up a bit. After a couple of club sodas, he stumbles over to the jukebox to play some music. It was an old jukebox that required you to push 4 digits to play a song. Well, this guy makes his selection and when he pushed the 4th digit he pushes himself backwards and falls flat on his back, making a huge scene. Just as I start to make my way over to help his drunk ass up, his song starts playing. It's I Fall to Pieces by Patsy Cline. Perfect. A group of guys were being loud and obnoxious assholes in a very full bar while playing pool and pumping tons of money into the touch tunes, playing their Hoobastank or whatever that they were playing. Being completely disruptive and intimidating anyone trying to use the jukebox. This one random guy sits at the bar right in front of me with his girlfriend and says, "Want to see something funny?" Pulls up the touch tunes app and starts playing a bunch of random songs and get queued to the front of the list. Almost everyone in the bar started laughing at the group when Mariah Carey's Christmas album started playing while the bros were yelling at each other to figure out who played the song. Went on for about an hour until they left. Oh, random guy. I wish there were more people like you out there. This strange kid always came in on Wednesdays around 10 PM. Got a pint of Guinness. Drank it. Tipped $10 plus the price. Said thank you and left. I always tried to strike up conversation and he wasn't rude, but I could tell he didn't want to. I always thought he was so cool in an enigmatic way. This wasn't in Galveston, TX. Was it? I knew a guy like that. So dumb. But at last call, my buddy and I went over to one of the exits to make sure people weren't leaving with drinks. City ordinance. We see a very drunk girl in her early 20s approaching, being helped out by 2 of her friends. When she gets close she goes to my buddy. She raises her hand up for a high five. My buddy raises his hand to give her one and she immediately goes into finger guns and says "WHO's gay," pointing at my friend with his hand raised looking like a dope. It was so random and unexpected. A true stroke of drunken genius. Edited to spare you all from the worst run-on sentence ever. I used to work at a golf club. Well, the horn sounded for all the golfers to come in because a storm was coming through. So I've got all these guys in the men's grill drinking and having a good time when the power cuts out. Inky darkness. Can't see a thing. The generators turn on after 20 seconds or so. And one of the guys is standing on his chair, with his pants down at his ankles and is pulling off his shirt. He gets it off. Looks around at the room all staring at him. Waits a beat and says, "Oh, we're not doing this?" The room erupted. It was just perfect. I watched a girl deep throat a beer bottle. From the bottom. She fitted all the way up to the neck. It was honestly intimidating. Another time I watched a dude get thrown out. Literally. Out of the corner of my eye I see movement. And I turn around to see two large bouncers standing at the door. And hear a gross sound behind me. It was a dude hitting the sidewalk. After being thrown at least 10 feet. He was completely dazed. Looked like they just about knocked him out. After a few seconds he sits up and rubs his head. As some of us approach. And the door opens. And wham, his missing shoe nails him right in the face. No clue what he did. But we got him to a bench. And waited with him till someone picked him up. I watched a girl deep throat a beer bottle. From the bottom. She fitted all the way up to the neck. It was honestly intimidating. Intimidating? That's terrifying. I could never watch that. What if it got stuck or she accidentally swallowed? We have live music Friday and Saturday nights. One night we have a small crowd for the solo guitar player, so this group of 5 dudes walking around on a bachelor party comes in and asks for $50 in ones from me after one round of drinks. Sorry, not a bartender. I was a regular poker player at a local establishment. The place was mostly whiskey and cigars. And had an older crowd. I was around 22. But liked the atmosphere. And beating drunk old dudes at poker was what paid my way through dropping out of college. On this particular day, my dad happens to walk in and sit down at the poker table. I didn't know why he was there. He isn't a card player and was never much of a drinker. On this night, he was pretty plastered. He orders another drink. And manages to slap down some money for poker chips. I was doing my best to explain the finer points of No Limit Texas Hold'em to him. When the action comes to him. Without even looking at his cards. He tosses a handful of chips onto the table, a decent chunk of change. Someone calls. My dad has an ace high flush. Cashes in his chips. Calls himself a cab home and buy the table a round of drinks. He totally ate your mom that night too. Guy asked me what my biggest tip was. Then said he'd triple it. Made $500 in 4 hours. So your biggest tip before that point was $166. 666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666666 Probably a week ago. I saw these 2 guys about to get in a fight. One was this big dude. Probably 6 feet 3 and 220 pounds. While the other was maybe 5 feet 9 and 150 pounds soaking wet. Anyways. They're about to get into it. When the small guy's buddy hops in between them and just starts screaming in this thick Canadian accent, "Do you wanna go, you bender? I'll break your hose and neck. I've been playing puck since I was in my ma's womb." The other guy immediately backed down. We had Jeopardy showing on one of the TVs and one guy sitting at the bar correctly answered every single question before any of the contestants did. Typical, not a bartender, but I was once at a bar in my hometown on Halloween night. Everyone was in costumes. I was on the patio smoking area and one dude stood out. He was 6 feet 5 and dressed in full super real looking cowboy gear, Stetson hat, jeans, duster, boots with spurs. Just standing in the corner smoking cigarettes by himself all night. So, a bunch of people are on the patio smoking and drinking and I notice a woman, dressed as a Thai minion or something equally silly, with a cigarette in her mouth. Digging through her purse looking for a lighter. Out of nowhere Cowboy Dan swoops and flicks open a Zippo. Lights a cigarette. tips his hat and says mom and goes back to his corner without another word. It was the coolest goddamn thing I've ever seen. As a bartender, the coolest thing I have ever seen a drunk person do is get cut off from being overserved and be totally respectful about. An old regular of mine used walk to the bar, see drink 9 or 10 Jack and Cokes. He never caused problems. Would just get a bit sloppy. Every time you told he was done we would smile, thank me and pay and go. That was uncool. Not a bartender, but at some point my dad and his friend were at a bar and this midget walks up to the bar and orders a drink. This dude is really eyeing short. Like 4 feet or something. When the bartender gives him his drink he thanks him. He tosses some cash up on the counter and then the rest of the cost of drink in coins. Only he flips the coins up so when they land on the counter they're spinning. Finally, he steps up to the counter with a few quarters in between his fingers. Jumps up and slaps his hand on the counter and the quarters hop perfectly into the tip jar. Then the dude just turns and walks away. My dad and his friend just sat there staring at each other. That guy is probably the smoothest motherer alive. Not bartender. But I used to deal blackjack. Hammered guy at a full table, doubled up on a 18/19 and pulled a 21. Made a big show about it. Not a bartender. But my one friend has a gyroscope for a hand. No matter what he cannot spill his drink. I've seen the kid fall downstairs or trip and fall on the ground and not spill a drop. Is your friend's name Julian? I watched a guy slam a 16-ounce glass of whiskey without stopping. It was a bet he had with his friend. Friend B bought it. If friend A could drink it, not throw it up, and not pass out, then friend A didn't have to reimburse friend B. Friend A partied all night and even had a few more drinks. And a rice bowl. Not a bartender. But I watched a man eat 40 McNuggets over a 100 kuna. $15. Bet. 40 McNuggets cost more than 100 kuna. Edit. This man is my friend from Herzegovina. Eating 40 McNuggets while you're drunk is about as impressive as drinking a glass of water while you're thirsty. Maybe not the coolest, but we had a wedding party coming after their wedding and the bride and groom got into an argument around last call. She threw her wedding ring and a chair at him and they were both arrested after. That was kinda cool. I used to be a bartender at a restaurant bar that had about 60% regulars in there. One night I was bartending. This big shot guy came in after a round of golf with his buddy. I wasn't familiar with the man, but he was ordering plenty of fancy drinks. Eventually after they eat, their tab is pushing $150. This lady walks in who is a regular. We'll call her Jan. He gets all excited because he hasn't seen this lady in years apparently. Eventually he gives me the tab back. Orders multiple rounds for the whole bar in hopes to impress Jan. His tab is like $650 by 9 PM, which is when we close on Sundays. Tips me $300. I was like, yeah. Considering he bought me a couple drinks as well and I'm a broke college kid. One time I let a group of regulars take my car to the gas station. A drunk one asked me if I needed anything and I said gas. I've told this story before but here we go again. Maybe not coolest but definitely most impressive. A couple were outside in the smoking area trying to, but he couldn't get it in because of the angle. She was facing towards him, and those of you who've tried it against a wall like this know it's not easy, so rather than the chick bending over, she decides to, with her back against the wall still, Spider-Man up the corner of it with her legs spread apart and gets her PSSY in the guy's face and he goes to town on her, eating her out. This only worked because of the inner wall and the smoking area is made of planks of wood making a sort of ladder. I was in the office at the time and me and a couple others were just watching this on the CCTV camera absolutely gobsmacked. I think the best part was a bloke on his own sat in the corner. This actually happened a few weeks ago. At the bar I work at there are a few tables that people can sit at and they have a waitress. So there's a party of like 6 at one of them and all of a sudden people start cheering, so we look over and one guy is stacking glasses. Ketchup, salts, peppers, you name it. Literally anything he could get his hands on he was stacking. He even had people at other tables donating to his creation. His tower of glassware was about 3 feet tall. To the point where he had to stand on his chair to keep stacking things. I don't think I've ever seen my manager move faster than at that moment. Bartending back in my college days at a local dive bar. The place was shoulder to shoulder packed. And loud as hell. Out of nowhere, some kid slowly starts to stand on one of the brass stools until he has the posture of a marine. After a second or two the entire bar went dead quiet and everyone was looking at him. Bar staff included. He then slowly raised a key with a massive pile of coke on it up to his nose. Inhaled and threw a fist in the air. The entire bar erupted in applause. Usually if you pull a stunt like that you'll get kicked out. But something about this kid made it so goddamn funny that I floated him a few shots on the house instead. ENL. But I was at a bar restaurant with one of those lobster claw machines. Think stuffed animal arcade claw game but with live lobsters in a tank. Some people had been trying all night with no success. Around midnight, a really drunk guy walks and asks 2 girls standing next to the machine if they like lobster. They say yes. He puts in $1 and gets one on his first try. Everyone cheers and he says the other girl deserves one too. He puts the first lobster on his shoulder, puts in $1, and gets another lobster on the first try again. He put the lobsters on the table next to the girls, says enjoy, and leaves. It was amazing. Not the coolest. Possibly the grossest. I watched this very large man wobbling at the bar, holding on as if he was gonna get thrown out of orbit. I instinctively give him some water and tell him to straighten up or he was out. Chugging the water he just grunted then started heaving. I slowly backed up and got a bouncer. I'll be damned if I'm cleaning up bath. We watch this man start barfing in his cup. We went over to escort him out and he was so committed to his sobriety he told me his bath cup was his drink then drank it. He drank a cup of bath. Straight face then told us he was sober. I admire his dedication. I worked a wedding this past summer and this one guy. He wasn't all that drunk but he was definitely tipsy. Was totally mesmerized by my speed and accuracy at making all these drinks at once. He was so blown away he yelled, "Hey, everyone should give this man $20 right now." Guy sitting at bar, close to closing, stuck his hands up through his polo style shirt giving the appearance of having very short arms and started hollering he couldn't reach his drink. Still funny to me but at the time and place it was hilarious. Call a cab instead of driving their car. Seriously. Props to patrons who recognize when they've had too much. Not a bartender but a bouncer. The coolest thing I've ever seen someone do at a bar is show up, drink like an adult and have a good time and get home safely without causing any problems. Responsibility is cool. Fuku sushi at University of Arizona about 3 years ago. Guy comes into the bar with his friends. They're doing sake bombs. They're there for a while then decide to go to the next bar. Friend 1. Wait. I can't go yet. I still have a full thing of sake. Friend 2. Well. Chug it. Me. Bartender. Yeah. Dude. Don't be a PSSY. Friend 2. Yeah. You're a PSSY unless you chug it. Friend 3. Starts chanting PSSY until he drinks it. Slowly getting louder. Rest of bar notices what's going on and joins in chanting PUSIII. PUSIII. Over and over again until he drinks the whole thing. He drank it all. Then puked. I handed him a mop. Then they went to dirtbags. I saw a drunk guy politely ask for his tab. Tipped accordingly. And thanked me on his way out. I don't think I'll ever see that again. Not a bartender. But the coolest thing you saw was on spring break in Mazatlan. Some beachfront bar had Mardi Gras night. Guy wanted girls' beads. I'm dancing on the bar in a drunk state watching them negotiate. Suddenly, he lifts her onto the bar. hikes up her skirt, rips her thong off and eats her out while everyone goes nuts. Absolutely wild to see that reaction. That's gotta be a health violation. I honestly can't think of a single thing after 5 years. Drunk people are the worst. At an Oktoberfest I was bartending, there was a guy who looked like he'd probably just turned 21. And he was beyond drunk. He walked up to this group of girls and put his arm around one of them and said, "Hey, you're hot," all nonchalant. The girl said, "Get the off of me, you're drunk," and the guy started to act like he was going to apologize and said, "Hey, whoa. Go yourself," and walked away.